Hello everyone, we are back criticizing online conquest strategy guides. We're looking at the rush set today. So familiarize yourself with the units and the commands over here. So this is an alternate. This is basically just anti-rush, but not anti-rush. Um, so let's see, this disclaimer is not a very good disclaimer. It's not really a strategy. We are in a strategy guide after all. I would think this would be pretty obvious. I don't see why they have to put this. So it is vital that you have your rush formation set up in a corner, I would say with a wall, because you don't have the chastise command. So you're going to have to defend lesser units, so scouts, foot soldiers, sparingly halberds to protect your more important units, right? So the corner allows you to make a wall with your scouts. See, there we go. Actually, a wall. Make conquest great again. With your scouts and foot soldiers to protect the others. Yeah, I've seen some people try to use a rush formation in the center, but that really doesn't work if you have chastise because your champions are not in range to defend each other. So your opponent basically gets to use chastise as an attacking command instead of a defending one. So let's see. You need you will have to experiment with different corner arrangements suiting your playstyle. Some things to consider are as follows. You need a champion in the top row. Yeah, for the initial rush, he needs to reach the back as fast as possible. Scouts and foot soldiers should be up front, right? That's for your wall. It's best to protect your halberds, but if you have two, you can have one up front. And knights by placing them on the last row. Well, that doesn't leave you a lot to experiment with, does it? It basically told you where to put everything except your other champion, but obviously that's going in the corner because you need to protect it. So this strategy is relatively simple. Rush involves you charging your first champion into the enemy ranks, killing units to get command points, and using commands to keep the champion alive. It is vital to prevent a hit on the champion by an opposing scout. Keep the champion at its full health before the rush begins. So yeah, I agree with that. Pretty difficult, though, to do that. And I think it's going to tell us that they're going to hit us with a scout anyways. So let's see. A good first move is always to move a scout forward 4 spaces, keeping away any enemy scouts. Well, it doesn't keep away enemy scouts. I just like to think he's there for decoration. Maybe he gets to take a scout, but he's not keeping away the scouts. So moving the scout forward gives the champion more chance, that's the technical term, to get across the board without being hit. So after the scout advances, the opponent may move his or her scouts for what? Why would they do that? You said they were keeping away the scouts. Flip-flopping already. So in this case, you should kill the other scout with your own scout. The opponent will most likely respond by killing one scout with his or her scout, moving his or her scout in range of your champion. Well, you haven't moved the champion forward. If you moved a scout, they moved a scout, and you killed it. That's all I'm going to say about that. At this point, it depends on what is it? Your next move, I assume? Depends on the placement of your champ. If you have 100 command points that turns, you can move the champ up, and a lot of players will suicide a scout on it, giving you 150 command points next turn. And they forget to chast, giving you the ability to charge and battlecry one of the opposing champions. Well, that's true if they forget to chast, but you should be thinking what happens if they do chast. Right? Because then you're pretty much screwed. You have to use one of your own commands to defend, otherwise they're going to just charge you with their champion. So you've got to use a command, and then they just move one of their expensive units backwards so you can't use charge on it. So you basically screwed yourself by doing that. So they tell you to keep your champion at full health up here. And I agree with that, but then down here they're telling you to actually let them hit you with their scout. Now I'm just saying they could have said maybe just if they explained what to do after chastise, but I'm pretty sure rush is screwed after that. But the rush begins when one comes into charging range of the first high value unit. So for 100 points, you should get 100 command points, and for the 75, you should get 125. That's just to keep using commands, I guess. I would think it's a bit less than that though. 125. So you need 75 for the charge, right? And then you need 75 for like stoic. So then you're down to 50. Maybe they use chast next turn. You use shield wall. I'm gonna go ahead and say you only need 100 points to charge a 75 point unit. Because I'm not really seeing a point to having 125. Maybe that's just because that's right before they get charged in battle cry or something. I don't know. But I think you only need 100 command points. Although maybe this would vary a bit just depending on what units they have. Like if they don't have any halberds, maybe I guess it would be different. But, one halberd can give you a stoic or a battle cry, and then you're getting 25 points each turn. So that's at least 3 turns is 75 points. I don't know. So after killing the first unit, you should begin using health boosting commands. Continue killing units and using commands to defend. Yeah, so when using shield wall, watch out for the Hallies. Yeah, that's gonna not make your champion as powerful with battle cry. So it says you should use the commands in this order: stoic, battle cry, and then shield wall. I don't know how much I agree with this. They say to always use battle cry first, and that's just because, well, use it first if you're not going to get a champion. If you are, then definitely use it last or wherever you're going to get the champion. But if you use it first, then your battle cry cools down quicker with your charge. So I don't know. I would kind of say use battle cry first. Although, well, I don't know. I was thinking maybe the reason for that is they can use stoicism and defend their halberd and close their wall. But I don't really see a point to using battle cry after that, because they can just use chastise and then use stoicism on that halberd or whichever unit. So yeah, I would say to use battle cry first. When attacking an enemy champion, you should not worry too much about losing your own champion, provided that most of the enemy's units have been eliminated. Even though you has lost his or her champion, that is some grade A English right there. The opponent's champion will be at 100 health and vulnerable to scout kills. Yeah, that's kind of true. But a champion is still a champion if they can push it up and kill something worthwhile. So a good rush takes down 3 high point units and reducing a champion to 100 HP. Well, I don't know how possible. Let's see. So you can use shield wall. 1 command, 2 okay. So maybe, I guess. That's maybe if they don't. That would just be a phenomenal rush if your opponent just doesn't have any commands and can't defend themselves at all. Like you're just killing something every single turn. So if your opponent is a competent defender, taking 2 high point units and hurting a champion is a success. I would say if they're a competent defender, you're only going to get 2 high point units. I'd honestly say that's all you're going to get. Maybe you get 1 in a champion weekend, although sort of depends what they're letting you do. So in many cases, an easy win following the initial rush is obvious. Well, that's not a very good strategy guide to say it's obvious. Could have at least given him some advice, push your other unit up, use commands to defend him. However, in some situations, the opponent still has a good chance in the game. In these circumstances, overall game awareness comes into play. That's also not advice. Oh, look, this also cannot be described in words and comes from experience. So, that's their way of weaseling out of giving you any more actual insight into how this set's used. They haven't been telling you, watch out for chastise, this can, I guess they tell you at the end over here, but they don't tell you how to watch out for it, or what to do about it, anything like that. Like, they don't even tell you how to play against certain sets. Like Bombard, you don't want to push the champions up, you want to push your scouts up instead. Although paying attention to the location of enemy troops is a good idea. That is a sentence fragment. If they are concentrated in one location, you could just repeat the initial rush with the second champion. Yeah. If they're spaced out, a simple rush will not work. Yeah, if they're spaced out, then everything you just read up here completely does not work. If they're spaced out, you're probably going to lose, to be honest. Make sure to take advantage of the halberd's superior range when attacking champions. Yeah, that should just be obvious. If you have a knight, it can be a champion killer and lure the opponent to use battle cry. The question is, if you can get anything out of that battle cry, considering they have, chast most of the time anyways. So this set only has a specific weakness. You're likely to have a hard time against opponents using chastise. Well, again, that's not the only weakness, as it said. The central spread out formation is also a weakness. Although this is heavily amplified, that is double time if they have chastise and a central formation. But chastise with the wall formation is still pretty much going to beat rush. It's what we're gonna say anti-rush is. So yeah, I like the set. I like the ideas behind the set. I wouldn't say it's the best set. I don't even know if it's a competitive set anymore. I haven't really seen anyone use it. But yeah, it was still a meta set. Still pretty good for what it does. So yeah, you put, let's see, so rush set should go in the corner. There is not a lot of room for experimenting, as it said. They really told you otherwise. So simple strategy, I guess. I don't know how simple I would call it as opposed to straightforward. Maybe you can use them synonymously. I don't want to pick at semantics. So they don't really tell you how to start the game too well here. They just say to move the scout, but then there's some confusion with the champion and where he's placed. I think they have their math wrong over here, if I'm going to be honest. Oh, another thing about rush is to really know how the movement system works. They didn't really tell you anything about that. They didn't tell you that, a champion can magically come out of the corner when you can't attack him, but he can still reach and attack you. So that's another thing to be aware of when you're using rush. So, let's see. A good rush is going to only take down 2 high point units. Not really going to weaken the champion. Oh, another thing is, They neglected to mention that walls can really put a dent in your rush. So you're trying to attack a unit like a champion who's in the corner. Let's say maybe you already traded off your first champion or whatever for theirs. all it takes is 3 units for them to hold themselves up in the corner. I mean, you're gonna attack a scout. That's not really worth very much. You can maybe get 2 scouts if they have chastise, I guess. And at that point, you run out of command points, or not command points, just commands to use. So maybe it's not really going to be worth trying to rush with your second champion, just because their wall is so much easier to defend. They don't really have as many units to protect because you've killed the 2 halberds, and it's only really 2 champions to protect after that. They could probably trade one off. But yeah, that's been this analysis. I would recommend using Rush. Maybe not too competitively because everyone uses anti-Rush, which just creams Rush, but it's definitely a notable set. It's a solid set, one definitely worth looking into, if you're new to the game at least. Well, that's all for this video. Join me next time. We're going to be looking at the anti-rush and the footy spam variant.